Join the Dark Order. Join the Dark Order.
Hello and welcome to the newest, latest, greatest episode of My Stupid Little Life. It's Bobby here with Tom again.
Yo.
What's going on, man?
Not much. I think we had too much fun doing this last time. We decided to do it again.
Yeah, dude, it's definitely better to have someone else to bounce ideas off of and to actually communicate with than just hearing my stupid voice the whole time. So you actually are the one who came up with the idea for this one.
Well, kind of. You had posted about a certain video game of the sports genre, and I thought about it and was like, it's really specific. Maybe we can build on this. And so I was like, I shot you an email and said, hey, what about top 10 sports games? And I thought that might be fun to talk about.
Absolutely. And so the cool thing about what we did here is we're going to go over our top 10 sports games of all time. Now, neither of us have told each other well, I made that one mistake and sent it to you and then told you to pretend you didn't see it. But we don't know what's on each other's top 10 lists.
No. We have a couple of good ideas, but no, definitely not in the top 10.
Right. And the other thing is we didn't specify, we said sports. We didn't specify whether that included wrestling, whether that included non-traditional stuff like dodgeball, things, tennis. I kept mine. Mine's going to be pretty much the major four leagues in America. I did have to do an honorable mention just because there was too many. There's too many. I'm a degenerate sports video gamer, and there's some that I just had to add, and I felt like my list skewed towards certain sports a little bit too much, and I didn't want to leave other games out and other series out that were really good. So I cheated.
Nah, that's good because you and I are going to be fun because most of my list is revolved around the major four. And I do have some honorable mentions as well, so they'll be good.
Okay, good. So before we get started on that, something we didn't talk about with the last one, and I just really wanted to just real briefly chat about it because it happened. I don't remember if it was right before I think you came down. Was the passing of Brodie Lee, and man, just how bad that sucks as a fan. How bad, obviously, it sucks for his family, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on in the time that's passed. I've seen AEW. Well, obviously, pretty much every wrestler that's ever had contact has posted stuff on social media just praising him, and not just the worker, John Huber, Brodie Lee, Luke Harper, whatever you want to call him, but who he was as a person and as a father, and that really struck me because a lot of the guys, you hear people saying, oh, they were such a good person, they were this and that, but not to the level, I don't think, that we've seen with Brodie Lee. And the way AEW has really embraced his family, especially his son, has just been outstanding, man. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on that real quick before we dive in.
Yeah. No, I know that you had wanted to talk about this, like when I came down and we didn't get a chance to record. So yeah, no, I think the interesting thing with him was, obviously, like you said, he's well respected across, pretty much any locker room that he was in. And the other thing too was that, he was just so young, and I think it kind of caught everyone off guard. So I think that's the big things, and it's like, oh wow, it's like a shock to the system, The interesting thing I found, this tidbit, I had no idea, but were you aware of how he got his wrestling name, Brodie Lee?
I know that Brodie part came from Bruiser Brody.
I thought that too. And and maybe that's still partially part of that, but actually, and then you're going to be a fan of this even more now. Supposedly, it actually came from um, Mallrats. And think of a character's name in there, and think of the character that
Bruce.
played him.
Oh my God. Get out.
Yeah, Jason Lee, and the Brodie part comes from the character name. So he puts that together and gets his name. And now, like the Bruiser Brody thing, I still think plays big into that because very similar wrestlers.
Right.
But yeah, isn't that interesting?
Oh, that's amazing. That makes me love him even more. And oh God, that's so awesome. I wonder if Kevin Smith knows that.
Yeah, it's cool. I saw an article. I can't remember what website it was, but I saw an article that mentioned that and was like, really? You had no idea.
Yeah,
So
I would not have guessed that. I just figured that, with the look and with the style and with the persona in the ring, that it was an homage to Bruiser Brody. I figured
yeah,
that was kind
I
of
I was the same exact. I thought the same exact thing. So
get out. That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. So that's my little contribution. But no, it's one of those things that I think it has caught everyone off guard, and it's a real shame. It was kind of neat to see Eric Rowan or whatever he goes under popped up there in AEW to pay his respects at the tribute show. That was kind of neat.
Yeah. Did you see he posted on, I don't know if you follow him on Twitter or not, but he actually got a new tattoo, and it's like it looks almost like a cross between the hammer that they used as the Bludgeon Brothers and like their sheep mask, kind of like the skull of it.
Yeah, I did see that. That's awesome.
And then it has the Norse word for brother on the hammer, which is actually Brodier, which is one letter off from being Brodie, which I thought was an added layer of just really cool, and it just shows. And honest to God, dude, I saw them as the Bludgeon Brothers when they came to Fort Myers for a house show a few years ago, and I popped so hard. I was so happy to get to see them in person because I thought it was a dumb gimmick, but I loved it.
Right.
Absolutely loved it. And it just pissed me off that they never ended up doing more with it because
Yeah.
WWE is going to WWE.
Yeah. That's one of those that the people make that gimmick work.
Right.
Not the other way around. And that just tells you how strong of a character that they both were. So that's yeah, definitely. He's definitely going to be missed.
Absolutely. All right, so let's move on. Let's get started with our lists. And so I did mine. I picked 10. I put them in an order. I numbered them, but I don't necessarily know that the order actually matters. At least for mine. How did you do yours?
I did the same thing. I have them in order, but it's funny because they're I could almost go off of like a season. So if it's football season, I may have football on the mind more, or if it's baseball season, I may have that on the mind more. So I can guarantee you that if I did this like 6 months from now, it may be a little different. But the one thing I did realize is that the games that I picked, and I'm sure some of yours are going to be the same, they're probably going to date us and show that these people were born in the 80s.
Dude, yeah, and you know what? And honestly, there's one on here, well, one that I did not include, and I specifically didn't include it because I never played it when I was a kid. I only played it after you and I had become friends and you kind of introduced me to it. Like I was always aware of it, but I had never picked it up and played it until I was in my 20s, I think.
Right. Yeah.
By the time that I actually got around to playing it. And I'm not going to ruin it, but I know it's going to be in your top 10. And when you say it, I will let you know. I'll let you go first, man. Go ahead with your first one.
All right. So, and again, I'll try to kind of keep the order that I have, but again, kind of like you, not no necessarily, in a row here. First, in my top, NCAA football '04.
Oh,
Um,
4.
yeah, and there's a reason for that. So whenever we first moved down here, I moved down with Nick Stokes, and so whenever we're cooped up, the first few months living together, we basically living in a hotel room for 3 months. What's one thing you have to do is play video games, and so that was like one of the games that we really got into, and really, I mean, hours and hours and hours of playing that. And I know they released a few more in the series, but that one just stuck with me. So it was more of a I can't tell you that that was better than any other one, you know.
Okay.
But that just has like maybe a little bit more meaning to me because I've played it a lot more, and because they quit making those games, what, 08, 09, something like that.
No, it actually, and dude, and this surprised me because I looked into it. It was, I believe, 14 or 15 was the last one.
Oh, wow.
Because I had what I thought was the last one. I had, it had RG3 on the cover, I think. But there was actually another one. There was one, I believe, I think it might have been, I had 13, so 14 was actually the last year.
Wow. Huh. I didn't realize it went that far out.
Yeah, 13 had RG3 on the cover, and I forget who the other person that had on it was. But yeah, so I had that one, and just when I was cleaning out my stuff one day, I looked through and I found it. I'm like, you know what? I wonder what this trades in for, just for giggles. And it actually traded in for a decent amount. So I think I ended up getting like $10 at GameStop or something like that.
No kidding.
Yeah, which means I probably should have kept it because they don't give you $10 for like normal stuff, but
yeah.
they did.
So, but yeah, number 10 for me then would be NCAA football 2004.
Right. And that's funny you mentioned that too, because NCAA 2008 is on my honorable mention for
no kidding.
Reasons. Yeah, like when I moved down here, I had that and I played it nonstop, and I was so at the time what I did is I would sign up with like a scrub school, like University of Southern Florida or University of South Florida, because my brother was going there, and so I would make my way up, and then I'd become like a highly recruited coach, and then I'd go to Temple, and then I'd make Temple into a powerhouse. And this was before Temple was like really taking off with Matt Rule and all them, so it was just super fun.
That's cool.
Yeah. All right, so you threw me off too, because I mean it makes sense that we would go 10-1 instead of starting at number 1, because every other list in the world starts off at the lowest number and goes number 1. I'm just dumb and didn't think about that. So going down to my number 10, it's going to be NHL Hits 2003.
Ooh.
So are you familiar with that at all? I don't remember if we
no. That the only thing that comes to mind is it would be akin to like Blitz.
Absolutely. So
okay.
So here's what NHL Hits 2003 is. It's like an arcade type hockey game. It's 3-on-3. Each team has a goalie, and it's exactly like NBA Jam, NFL Blitz. And what it did, though, what was fun was not only did you have your normal NHL teams, but you could make teams, and then you could recruit players and stuff as you went along. You had little tasks, like you had to check so many people through the boards, or you had to break the glass this many times, or you had to catch fire this many times. But there were also some mini games in it. And there was one that was it was ridiculous and stupid and fun, where you got to pick, you could even be like mascots and stuff, and you just had to check the other players out of the ice. It was like a circular rink, and the whole idea was just to run into people just as many times as you could and try and check. It was almost like a Royal Rumble where you had to get them over the top of the boards. And it was super fun. And then they had one where like you had to break windows on a building with your shots. One where you had to like put out fires or something. I don't remember. There were so many cool different mini games and stuff. So I had to throw that in there.
Yeah, that's cool. I never played that, so no, that's awesome.
Yeah, I actually, hey man, next time you come down, I have it still, and it works on the 360. I don't think it works beyond that, but I know it definitely still works on my 360. So,
Cool. No,
and
I'm down.
that's actually an OG Xbox game.
No kidding, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah, it makes sense. 2003. No, that's cool.
yeah. So,
Very
all right,
cool.
man. What do you got for 9?
Well, it's funny. I'm gonna go completely the opposite direction from like an arcade style bruiser to my number 9 is Baseball Mogul.
Oh, oh my God, I didn't even think of Baseball Mobile.
So yeah, you played it plenty enough. The good old text based simulator. I remember getting it when it first came out. PC. I looked it up. The release date was 97. But they've released one every year since, and they still make it too. So yeah, no, I was always big into sports stats and particularly baseball. And that game, while the graphics were extremely limited,
It had graphics?
yeah, yeah. It was funny because you could set like the concession prices. So I think the graphic was like a picture of a hot dog. So, but no, it was cool because it was one of the first games I can ever remember that kind of took a different approach to, okay, we're not just playing the game as far as, well, we're going to play these 9 innings and be done with it. And then we're not going to just stop at the season mode. We're going to, build a dynasty, build a franchise. So you could go move beyond. So that was really neat, even working through some fast simulations and kind of seeing these players that would make the Hall of Fame and, how well you would do with, how many times can you make the playoffs, and just really, really fun game. That's one of those a sports game, obviously not for everybody, but if you're into those simulations and statistics, man, I'd be shocked to find anyone that hasn't, thought about playing that one, because that's a classic.
Dude, yeah, absolutely. And so my first memories of that game are, I remember getting like one of the first PC gaming magazines that I'd ever gotten. And I got it because it came with a demo disc. And on the demo disc were 2 games that I would play to this day. One of them being Worms.
Nice.
And one of them being Baseball Mobile. And the best part about it was, yeah, they were demos, but the Baseball Mogul demo was pretty much the full game. It just didn't have, I want to say, it didn't have, it was missing one thing, and I feel like it was like pictures or something of the players. But then what's been really cool ever since is I think it's like every year or every 2 years when they release a new version, an older version goes free. And you can just go on their website and download the updated versions. So like, I forget when I downloaded the last one, but the last one I downloaded, I started in, I think, the 70s. I took over the Seattle Mariners. Now, obviously, I'm a Phillies fan. So are you.
Mm-hmm.
But I took over the Seattle Mariners as an expansion team and did the expansion draft and everything. And so what's cool about that game, and I think you'll agree, because have you ever done like a historical season in that?
I generally would just start from current time and try to plow forward. I know years and years ago, I would go back and pick off teams that were, like the 27 Yankees or whatever, and just kind of see, how good I could take an already good team and go that way with it. I never started with anyone that was like, to build up, other than the funny thing is that playing that game, being a Phillies fan, you could start current, particularly 90s into the early 2000s, and you were starting from the ground up. So
right, exactly. But what was cool was starting with the Mariners, you could start with them, and then as you're going through, like, you go through a draft year and you look at the draft picks and you're like, oh yeah, I recognize that name. And that these guys have the ceilings that they have. And so and the floors that they have. So you pick them up, and then based on how you've got your minor league development and your scouting and everything, really determines how good these players get. You can actually have an effect on how good or how bad they develop. So I've gotten people, I remember getting Nolan Ryan, and I don't know what I did to poor Nolan Ryan, but he sucked after like 82. He was garbage. And so I traded him, and then of course he picked back up. But I was able to draft Griffey, I was able to draft Bo Jackson, Matt Williams. There was a bunch of players that I drafted, and some of them did awesome. And some of the ones that I didn't expect to do well, it just completely blew my mind with how well they played. John Kruk let me down, and I hate to say that because I love the Tucker. But dude, I don't know. I guess my minor league scouting team did him dirty.
Yeah, and that's one thing I really liked about that game was that you could, like you just said, for the most part, you knew how certain people were going to pan out. So even starting in current time, so if you had I'm going to start my team and I have Bryce Harper on it, and I'm going to see how well I'm going to do. But he may not continue to do as well as you think he's going to, or he may outperform. So that was always fun to kind of see what track it may actually take. And then you have these random people that are like, who are you? And why are you hitting 25 or 30 home runs in a season?
Right. Well, dude, did you ever play long enough that aliens started taking over the teams?
No, I remember the first big thing that they did. There was a certain year that you had men and women that were able to be drafted. And I can't remember what year that picked up. But no, I don't remember the alien thing. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, it was the GMs for the other teams, and sometimes the agents for the players would be aliens. I'm like, what happened here? And it just turns out it's just a feature that if you play so long that they just somehow infiltrate the game. So,
that's pretty cool.
The NWO is here.
Yeah. So, that was my my number 9, if you will, baseball mogul.
Okay. All right. So my number 9 is also a baseball game. I went in a different direction. I went World Series Baseball 95 for the Genesis.
Ooh, nice. That's a good game.
Oh, dude. Yeah. I can remember staying over at my friend Mike Nicotra's house, and me and Mike and his little brother Steven would just do fantasy drafts. Every time I would go over there, it would never be like, oh, hey, let's pick up the season we started before. No, let's do a fantasy draft because that's the fun part. And what was really cool about that game was, just like we were talking about in Baseball Mogul, there's like these almost like secret weapon players where they weren't really stars in real life, but you would get them and their stats were such that you could just dominate people with these players. Like, trying to think, who was the one pitcher? There was a pitcher who at the time I believe was with the Expos, and I can't remember his name, but he wasn't like the greatest pitcher in the world, but you would get him and you did not have to worry about, like, if you needed to use him as a starter, you could use him as a starter. If you needed to use him out of the pen, you didn't have to worry about your bullpen at that point. So, but man, the other thing that I always remember about that game was just, it was one of the first ones that I remember having the realistic batter's box / catcher's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And just thinking, man, this is so cool. Look how realistic this looks. And like, just, oh God, I have so many fond memories of that game and just how fun it was.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I didn't even include or even think about those games, and I should have, because I played them for a couple of years of their release quite a bit, and they're a lot of fun. Like you said, they were a lot more realistic for the time, because that was like a good precursor to the like the EA, like the triple play.
Yes.
That was basically, to me, that was like the precursor to that. Which. But those games on the Genesis like that, though, they were way more playable, just because they were easy to learn, but kind of hard to master at the same time.
Right.
And I always appreciated that with sports games. So that's a good one.
And I actually even, just to expound upon that, like what you said, I've actually got triple play gold on my honorable mentions, which was the EA version of it. Because that I used to play with the Barney brothers. And again, same thing. We would do, the fantasy draft and then play through. And then the follow-up to that on the more modern systems, the MVP baseball series.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which outstanding.
Yep.
So hopefully I didn't step on your toes with those. I probably shouldn't have jumped the gun.
No.
But yeah, man. So that's there's gonna be there's a lot of baseball on my list. There is.
Yeah. There's a lot on mine too. And I haven't even mentioned. I'll just throw out a couple of my honorable mentions too, just to get them out of the way. Hardball 3, particularly for the PC. Same deal, customizable rosters, because I can remember sitting there with a newspaper in hand, because they didn't have real players, but you could go in and custom, like the stats were legitimate, but the names weren't, because they didn't have the rights to them.
Right.
And you could get in there and edit the rosters. So I would look at the box scores in the Gloucester County Times of all things, and look at and see who the real players were, and I'd fill out the lineups that way. So I had a lot of fond memories doing that. And then there's another couple that I'm thinking that like Tony La Russa baseball is another one PC game that was kind of in the same vein. Very, you can customize it a little bit, and it was a good simulation, but also kind of fun to play too. So those I can't have in my top 10 necessarily, but they're just good, solid baseball games.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I do remember those. I remember some of the hardball games actually came out on Genesis too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They were in those weird Accolade cartridges. I don't know if you remember those at all.
Yeah, they didn't look normal.
Right. All right. So what's your number 8?
Okay. It's funny. We're going to keep with baseball, I guess. We should have just said top 10 baseball games, because no. MLB Power Pros 2008 for the Wii.
Oh my God. How did I forget? Dude, we really should have just done a top 10 baseball. Oh, I love that game.
Yeah. And I mean, you know full well why. I mean, that was, that to me was the premier baseball game where, I'm going to have to say a quick thank you to Danielle for bringing me a beer. But the, MLB Power Pros, because you had the great like arcade aspect of that, and then the simulation aspect beyond of just trying to improve your players. You had that whole like after the game aspect.
Right.
It was like really a 24/7, way to do it. And I mean, obviously very cartoonish. But I think for the Wii, I never played it because it came out for PS2, right? As well.
Yeah, it came out for PS2. It came out for Wii, and it actually came out for the DS as well.
Really? Okay.
And I know what? Funny enough, it came out for I don't know if it came out on Android, but it came out on iOS.
No, yeah. I think the thing that really stuck with me, because I only ever played it for the Wii, and because the Wii had that, the additional attachment to the controller, where you could do some different things, simulate swings, obviously with the controller itself, and you had the other little joystick that you could do some things with the attachment that worked really well with that game. So I obviously big baseball fan. I think we've talked about what it seems like a dozen baseball video games already, and we're not even past number 8. But no, that to me, that is the up at the top as far as arcade / simulation, and then it had so much more to offer as far as baseball games are concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. All right, so I feel like I have a stupid funny anecdote for every game you've mentioned so far. But when my mom and Stephanie and Ryan and Chelsea had first moved down to Cape Coral, there was a Blockbuster Video down the road from them, and I went there looking for games just because Blockbuster used to sell their games, and I wanted to see if they had anything interesting. They actually had Power Pros Baseball, the Japanese version of it.
Really?
And they had it for sale.
Huh.
and I bought it. And I remember getting it home and playing it, and I'm like, what in the hell am I playing? And I think it was mostly obviously because I don't understand how to read Japanese. But like I was lost. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. And then finally when Power Bros came stateside and I started playing, I was like, oh my God, I wish that I would have been able to understand what I was playing before. Because number one, I would have held on to it just as a cool little collector's item. Because I ended up, like, right after I played it, I took it up to I was working part-time at Game Crazy. Or no, I had quit by then because I was working full-time in the guard. But I took it up to Game Crazy and I traded it in there. They're like, what the hell is this? I'm like, I don't know, man. It's a Japanese baseball game for 64. Oh, okay, cool. We'll give you whatever for it. I don't remember what. Shout out to Ryan, who used to run the Game Crazy that I used to work at. He actually runs the Nerd Mall at Polsky's Corner in Woodbury now. They have all kinds of cool stuff. But yeah, he ended up trading me. I forget what he gave me for it, but took it off my hands. And but then of course after I realized what it was, they were closed, so they didn't have it anymore. Obviously, they sold it off. But man, it was such a fun game.
Definitely. So yeah, that's Power Pros for me.
Okay. All right, so that's your 8. So I'm gonna rearrange mine a little bit because I actually was a little bit of, and it sounds like you did too, but I actually did the list and jotted down some notes for each game, and my notes for this one are not gonna make sense if I read it in the order I have them written. So
fair enough.
I'm gonna swap 2 games on this list. So my number 8 is going to become ice hockey for NES.
Nice.
So basic hockey, but it's a sentimental favorite. It's one of the first games I had for the NES. I actually remember going with my dad to, I don't remember if it was Caldor or Bradley's in Paulsboro, and we bought it because we had been playing my neighbor's copy, and my dad just fell in love with it, which he didn't do with video games. But that was the one where you had your 3 player types. You had your skinny, fast guys who they could skate all over the ice as quick as could be, but as soon as anything touched them, they fell over and dropped the puck. You had your medium guys who they were kind of like the jack of all trade. They could go all over the place. And then you had your fat guys. They were like the mastodons who could knock anyone over.
The big bruisers.
Right. And it was, I think the only players they couldn't knock over were the goalies,
right.
It was the same size. Now you could fight in that game, but you couldn't control it. And I don't remember, but I feel like it was if you had the puck, you actually got the penalty, and if you didn't have the puck, you didn't, or vice versa. I don't remember exactly how it went, but it was a super fun game. It was not very deep at all. It was based on like an international tournament, but it was fun. It was definitely fun. It was something that I remember, and I'll still, especially with it being on the NES online for the Switch, I'll boot it up every once in a while. I got it on cartridge for my NES, so I can play it on that too if I want. But
I had the same thing, man. So this will help speed up our list too. That's actually my number 6.
Really?
So yeah,
okay.
Same deal, because it's such a simple game, but it's so ridiculously fun. It's one of the few games that I'm like you. I'll put it down, and I might not play it for 2 or 3 years, but I could easily pick it right back up, and it's like riding a bike. That's one of those games that it's so fun. It's so easy to play. And you can play a couple of games. And I always love of course I'm going to be USA, and I'm going to have the computer be the USSR. So yeah, no, definitely that's a top for anyone that was born in the 80s. That's got to be a top 10 sports game. Has to be.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, since you just went with your 6, do you wanna go with your 7, or do you want me to go with my 7?
Well, I'll go 7 here, just to get it out of the way, because it's a tie. I did a tie for a couple of these just because I couldn't really give up one or the other, and you'll appreciate both of them. Baseball Stars.
Oh.
And Super Baseball 2020.
Are you kidding me? That's my number 7.
No, no kidding, really.
That is my number 7. I have Baseball Stars higher up on the list, but for Super Baseball 2020, what I wrote was baseball plus robots plus jetpacks plus cybernetic upgrades plus landmines equals fun.
Nice. That pretty much that describes the entire game. Yeah, no, I couldn't pick one or the other because obviously you and I've had a long history of playing Baseball Stars and a lot of not enough appropriate things we could say about it here. But that's such a fun game in the sense that, again, you could edit the names. You earn money for winning games for things, which is really cool for considering the game was released in '89.
Right.
So it's some really neat things. And on the same point, the Super Baseball 2020, which was obviously, like you said, you're basically robots playing baseball and doing all sorts of crazy things that aren't necessarily all sports related. But it's still a fun baseball game. Again, one of those easy to play, considering the error, but it's pretty deep game. Baseball aside, you've had some different things you could do with it for the time.
Right.
So I couldn't differentiate between one or the other. For me, anyway, looking at some of the other games that I had on the list. So I put that as a tie: Baseball Stars and Super Baseball 2020 for me for 7.
So in that, along with those two games, what's funny is both of them developed by the same company. So they were both Neo Geo games. They were both SNK games, and they had arcade releases first. Now, Baseball Stars was much, much different in the arcades. Baseball Stars 2 that came out for the NES was much closer to the arcade version of Baseball Stars than what we actually got on the NES. Now, one of the cool things, and I'm sure you noticed this, but people who have played the game but haven't played it, like we've spent so many hours playing that game. But one of the things that people might not know is if you dove to make catches, if that kind of stuff, little actions you made on the field, just like in Super Baseball 2020, you would get more money at the end of the game. Super Baseball 2020 did it per inning. They actually gave you a running tally of what you got per inning. But Baseball Stars, it would add up at the end of the game. And so, like, if you were making jumping catches and you were catching the ball at the wall, or you were diving to make a catch, you actually got more money at the end of the game. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, it was a combination of how you played and then how much your star rating was. So, like, when you could go in and you could build up their attributes with the money you won from the games.
Mm-hmm.
There was one
that
was like the star rating. So the star rating combined, that was your base of what you were going to get at the end of the game. But you got extra bonus money based on how often you would make a jumping catch or how often you would make a diving catch and all of that stuff.
Huh. Yeah, no, it's funny. Play these games for all these years, learn something new every day. I had no idea.
Yeah. Well, that was one that, I mean, not only did you and I play that, but that was, again, the Barney brothers, Ryan and Matt. Dude, between the leagues that we had in my parents' basement, which we probably can't speak of, and then the teams, before I knew about the cheat code to make the teams, to make them powered up, me and Ryan and Matt used to just make teams and just play with, like, whatever crap teams we got. And dude, we would play forever. And then, of course, I learned the cheat code, and you and I made these superpower teams, and we would just tee off on each other.
Yes.
So
yeah, and it's just fun. Like you just alluded to it too, the replayability of that, and pretty much every game that we've talked about so far is just that's another key. It's like, oh yeah, could be a great game, but it's maybe not something that I'm going to say, oh yeah, I played this version of Madden or something. and I play it for that year, and well, I'm going to go just pick up the next year because that's generally how those games go.
Right.
Like, here's a game that we're talking about that we just played like a couple weeks ago, and it came out in
Yes.
the 80s. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, we had the glitch during the Baseball Stars game that screwed it all up. But yeah, no, and that's exactly one of the things that I looked at when I was making this list, and what actually right before I finished the list, it's something that knocked a game out because I thought back and I'm like, all right, well, is this a game that I would go back and play today? And most of these games that are on my list, there's something that I have played within the last year.
Nice.
Some
Yeah,
way,
that's
shape, or
pretty
form.
much me too.
And that's where some of the stuff that's honorable mention, that's why it's honorable mention, because I don't play it today. It's something I could, but like NCAA football 2008, I'd love to get my hands on that game and play it again. But the fact of the matter is I lost all my progress, and now I have no desire to go back and start over again.
Right. Yeah, I'm the same way on. I would love to have a new NCAA football game, but I don't have any real inkling to go back and play, the ones that I played.
Right.
So